Hello. Good evening. Hello. How are you all? After some time, right? How's life? Can you all hear me properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Getting ready for the new year or what? Getting ready. Today is Easter, right? Easter Sunday. Getting ready for Ramadan, right? Lot of festivals, don't we? Now I have shared the convocation video during YouTube to your main group, right? So your group representatives will share it with you. Go through and see the event. I don't know whether some of you might have kind of already watched it, but anyway, watch it and see, you know, how grand and how unique the convocation was. And I really wanted you all to be a part of it one day, right? I wanted you all to be a part of it as fast as you can. So work hard and, let's hold our hands together to see that you reach there without wasting your time. Now, if you watch it properly, you'll see that the MEd first batchers graduated from there. And I'm so happy because they were one of the batches I started. And when I saw them conferred with their masters, I was very, very happy. I even had tears in my eyes. I was, I mean, it was so emotional. It was so touchy, right? So I wanted you all to be a part of it one day for us to see how you walk on the stage, get the garland, and get your certificate, and then conferred as graduates of Lincoln University. And for that, I hope you will work hard. You will try with every possible way that we show you to do your assignments and exams on time, study for the exams, and do not get repeated, like, don't get repeat. So, I mean, if you fail, if you don't reach the correct mark, you will be a repeat student. So I don't want you to repeat the subject. I want all of you to pass it and become a very successful graduate one day, but not very far, very soon in the future. All right. Hope all of you will be determined. Examination things are not to be discussed. We can't discuss them in public. Okay, exam papers are marked by the relevant parties. So there's nothing to be worried about. You'll get your results on time and you'll be able to graduate as fast as you can. Right. Okay, now to refresh ourselves, tell me what were we talking about the week we met, I think about 2 or 3 weeks back, if I can remember properly. Can you remember what we did last?
Communicative
Who can remember the
approach.
last? Yeah, we were talking
Communicative
about
approach.
communicative approach. Thank you, Maisha. It's really nice of you to remember. And I want you all to always, have this track of what you all have learned. It's a must. We will have to make sure that we know what we have done and that we are kind of, enamored with what we have done and what we are supposed to do. We should be aware of. All right. So in this communicative approach, what are the things that we touched about? Can you tell me a little bit? Tiny bits. What were the main subtopics that we talked about?
The role of the teacher in communicative approach.
Okay, very good. The role of the teacher in communicative approach. Then didn't we talk about any strategies?
Grammar competence, social linguistic discourse, and
Yeah, we talked about 4 strategies, right? Okay. What else? Then we talked about,
we learn through tasks and meaning.
we even learned about models of communication. Can you remember? And we said there are 3 models. Here. There were 3 modules. Can you remember what are they? What are the modules that we learned?
Transactional,
Audio equal method.
Transactional, linear, interactive. Right.
Interactive.
Okay. Good. Right. Yeah. So we went through them. Then we had some examples. Right. So are you kind of now, or do you feel that you are quite familiar with this approach, communicative approach? Do you think that you will be able to answer any question that you get with communicative approach? Because this particular set of slides is not going to be really enough for you. I want you to read more on communicative approach. Whatever you read, you try to relate it to the lessons that we have done. Always relate them. Go through the subtopics we have touched here. Okay. Go through every possible, the heading that we can find information about. Read through practically almost all the journals and the articles published by scholars, and you can always widen your horizon. That has to be done. Okay. The more you read, the more competent you become with whatever you do. So I want you to be very much, what should I say, addicted to reading, I would say. And it's not a bad addiction. It's a good addiction. It will always help you to learn more than what we know every minute that we go through it. All right. Okay. Now give me a minute until I share the screen for the next lesson and the lesson that we are going to discuss today. Okay. Just give me a minute. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can say.
Right. Okay. Now see, what does it say? Teaching of listening and speaking. Teaching the skills for speaking and listening. Now we have a different word here. What is the word that is going to be different from all what we have spoken so far? What word is new here?
Teaching the skills.
Yeah, skills, right? Now, so far we didn't talk about the skills. we viewed speaking and listening as two separate big components, which are skills, of course. But now we are going to teach the skills for these two, right? I want you to take, say, a couple of minutes and think, what could these skills be before I go to the next slide? Just take a couple of minutes and try to think. I mean, I don't want you to go to the internet and search, but I want you to kind of think what these skills would be that we are going to talk about. All right, take 2-3 minutes, just jot down somewhere, and then I'll ask, and then just try to reply. Right. Any volunteers to say what these skills would be? What skills would we be talking about? Are you listening to me while you're doing shopping? Is that the reason that you can't answer me? Right. In that sense, I'll have to go through the slides, right? Explaining them if you're not going to answer me. Okay. Right. So here we are going to talk about spoken discourse, listening processing, bottom-up processing, and top-down processing. All right. In this lesson, you will be able to achieve this, right? This is the learning outcome. Differentiate between the two perspectives of teaching listening, or listening as comprehension and listening as acquisition. There are two things. It goes as listening as comprehension, listening as acquisition. Then explain the spoken discourse. Then compare the bottom-up, top-down processing to teaching listening. And then explain the classroom activities and exercises for teaching bottom-up and top-down. Okay, that's going to be our learning outcome. Right. Now, say when we consider the teaching of listening, okay, we have two of it, or we can divide it into two: listening as comprehension or listening as acquisition. What can you say about this now? Tell me that. What is it that you would like to talk as listening as comprehension, and listening as acquisition. What do you understand by these two words? Anybody who's willing can talk and tell me. I'm not going to point out. I don't want to. I don't want to put you in trouble.
Listening as acquisition is what we hear in day-to-day life, general, I mean, to acquire the language.
So then what do you mean by listening as comprehension?
Listening as comprehension, is it for the listening skill, like activities on for learning things?
Right, okay. Right. Now just keep these two in mind, because I'm going to give you a small activity towards the end based on these two, listening as comprehension and listening as acquisition. So while we go through, see whether you can gather anything in order to have as an input for these two, right? So when you say listening as comprehension, listening as comprehension is a traditional way of thinking about the nature of listening. In most manuals, listening and listening comprehension are used as synonyms. Okay, so they consider listening and listening comprehension both more or less the same. This view is based on the assumption that the main function of listening is to facilitate understanding of the spoken discourse. Now we have another word. Now we have, new words coming in, traditional way of thinking. And then you say listening comprehension are used as synonyms. And then we talk about a spoken discourse. Now, what is a spoken discourse? Right. These are like, if you are attentively listening and if you are attentively trying to learn, these are words that you should take down somewhere in a notebook, and then immediately that you should look for what they are. I mean, look for the meaning, right? Now
Spoken
this
discourse and writing discourse are different, because spoken discourse we use hesitance, like pauses and expressions. But in writing discourse, we merely express through words, and we are unable to express the facial expressions, and we don't use like those things.
Okay, so what do we use with writing a discourse?
Writing, it is like either formal writing or informal writing.
Okay, still, how do we have this discourse in writing?
It is, how can we follow a grammatical pattern in writing discourse, but in spoken discourse, we don't actually.
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, now I mean, what I'm asking you, Putra, is like, how do we maintain this writing discourse? What helps us to do that? Now, in spoken discourse, as you said, all these noises that we make, certain expressions, the words that we use, they all work as spoken discourse, right? What is the function of them actually? What do? They help us maintain a
Interaction between the
flow.
two
Yeah, the flow, isn't it? It helps us to maintain a flow in the speech, isn't that so? Is that
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Yes,
No?
madam.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Yes, right. So in writing, to maintain, I mean, instead of going into all these difficult words, if we simply look at it, in order to maintain the flow of a writing, what do we use? What should be?
Punctuation marks.
Yes, not only punctuation marks. There's some other things that we need to, because to maintain this the flow, and to see that it's not interrupt.
Sequential was then later next to flow.
Yeah, what do you call them? Connectives. What are they? What do you call them? They are called connectives. right? We will have to use plenty of connectives in order to maintain the flow of writing. All right, look for this word connectives and see how we use connectives in formal and informal instances, and the connectives which can be used as different functions, like, agreeing, disagreeing, cause and effect. There are different categories under which you can find number of connectives, and if you use them in the correct way, even if you formally speak, you can always use these connectives, and it will help us to maintain the cohesion and the coherence or the flow of whatever we speak or write. All right. So let's move on to the next and see how this is going to work. Now see, this approach of teaching listening is based on the assumption that the role of listening in a language program is to help develop learners' abilities to understand things that they listen to. All right. Now, see, now when I say these things with the sight words, right? You know what sight words are. As soon as you look at things, you understand. You don't even have to read it, but you identify and you understand. So even when you go through this particular slide, what happens is you can read and understand. You come to an understanding, but isn't there a difference between simple comprehension and acquisition? Is there a difference or isn't there a difference? The difference between comprehension and acquisition. What do you mean by acquire? Once when you acquire, what happens?
Naturally, you learn it, acquire, then you
Mhm.
learn it naturally. You don't
Okay.
learn the rules and all, but you know it by yourself.
Okay, but whatever you acquire, then what happens at the next stage?
Then you use it.
Hmm?
You use it.
You reuse it, right? You can reuse them. Does the same thing happen with comprehension? Can the same thing happen with comprehension?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, right. Let's see whether it's a yes or a maybe or a no later, right? Let's leave a question mark there and then move on. All right. What is a spoken discourse? Now read this and see. Spoken discourse is an interactive speech between two or more people, which is a broad-based language phenomenon in daily life. Now see, it has a huge definition there. Spoken discourse is the ongoing, situated interpretation of a speaker's communicative intention, of which the addressee expected and actual reactions are an integral part. The creation of discourse is thus a joint effort involving the active cooperation of all the participants. One person only cannot have this spoken discourse. If you are speaking, okay, if you are speaking in a group, everybody will have to make an effort to maintain the discourse, right? Because it is an interactive speech between two or more people. If one person keeps on talking, it becomes a monologue, right? And it's not going to be a interactive speech. It's not going to be a communication. It's going to be a monologue. One person speaking to he or she only. Therefore, this spoken discourse, if you are talking about it and if you are able to give a definition about spoken discourse, you have to say that it is an interactive speech between two or more people, right? And also, it is going to be a joint effort. All the participants' cooperation will have to be there to have a spoken discourse. This is very simple, right? Let's see what it is. Now, what are the characteristics that you see? so that you can use in spoken discourse. If you start very fast, although speech rates vary considerably. Unplanned and often reflects the process of construction such as hesitations, reduced forms, fillers, and repeats. This is how the discourse works, right? Has a linear structure compared to a hierarchical structure for written discourse. Now, there is a difference. Here it says we have a linear structure in spoken discourse. Delivered one clause at a time, and longer utterances in conversation generally consist of several coordinated clauses. That's quite possible, right? When we talk, we just utter a lot of clauses, mostly combined with connectives, right? Spoken texts are often context dependent and personal, assuming shared background knowledge. When we start talking, we assume, when it comes to spoken discourse, we assume a lot of things. We assume the other person knows, we assume the other person would want to listen, we assume that they have a background knowledge, we assume that they are aware of it, and then only we speak, okay? Spoken text may be spoken with many different accents, from standard or non-standard, regional or non-native, and so on. Now see, spoken discourse can have almost all these characteristics. Do you agree with that? Do you understand? Read it by yourself and try to digest it. Read it again on your own. This is how we normally analyze the characteristics of spoken discourse. Okay. Now see, what other things will have to be done for spoken discourse. There are two ways of processing this. One is called bottom-up processing. The other one is called top-down processing. Now, if you all have completed your reading module, have you done your reading module? Have you all completed your reading module?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So now there you might have encountered these two words, bottom up and top down. What were they in reading? Did you find anything like this in reading? Bottom up approach and the top down approach? Did you?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just tell me? Not the batch 12, right? Okay.
Bottom up is like from small to large, like we start from the basic, but
specific to
we start, yeah.
specific to gender.
Top down, we start with, the schemata, background knowledge, from the large to small. Okay, general to specific, if you remember. Bottom up is specific to general and top down is general to specific. Okay, down to the tiniest of information. Right. Let's say what it is. Now I want one of you to read this. Who would want to read it? We English teachers should be able to read, right?
Bottom-up processing refers to using the incoming input as the basis for understanding the message. Comprehension begins with the received data that is analyzed as successive levels of organization. Sounds, words, clauses, sentences, text, until the meaning is
Derived.
derived. Comprehension is viewed as a
Comprehension is viewed as a process of what?
decoding.
Decoding. Mhm. Read a bit slower, dear.
Comprehension is viewed as a process of decoding.
Mhm. The next, right. The next part.
The listener's lexical and grammatical competence is in a language provides the basis for bottom-up processing. The input is scanned for familiar words, and grammatical knowledge is used to work out the relationship between elements of sentences.
Right, okay. So who's going to tell me what this is about, bottom-up processing? Who would like to say? Who would like to speak on this? I don't want to sleep in the afternoon, just keeping your Zoom on. Just participate. Or else I'll name. It's very simple. I used to have very good participation up to 3 days. What has happened to you all? Oh, the people who participate all the time, are they absent? Right, bottom-up processing refers to using the incoming input as the basis for understanding the message. Right. So what comes first? Incoming input is going to be the first thing. It is the basic. And it is the one that is helping us to understand the message. Therefore, the comprehension begins with the received data that is analyzed as successive levels of organization. Now, how are we going to analyze it? We are going to analyze them as sounds, words, clauses, sentences, text. We keep analyzing. Analyzing what? Until the meaning is derived. Meaning is, until we get the meaning. Therefore, comprehension is viewed as a process of decoding. You just hear something, and from the first thing that you heard, you are going to do all the work of, work with sounds, words, clauses, sentences, text. You do all this, okay? That is called a process of decoding. Now, what we look for, the next one is the learner's lexical and grammatical competence in a language provides the basis for bottom-up processing. To understand this, you need to understand the language. Now, say, suppose if somebody comes here and speaks to us in Spanish, and we have not learned the language, we don't know anything about it, we don't know the vocabulary, we don't know the sounds, we don't know the grammar of it. Do you think we'll be able to understand? We may not, unless we see some gestures and try to see how connected they are going to be, right? Therefore, the input is scanned for familiar words. Now see, grammatical knowledge is used to work out the relationship between elements of sentences. In sentences, you get the elements. And this grammatical relationship will always help us to understand what is being said. That is why when the children write without grammar, you say, well, we don't understand the head or the tail of what you have written. We can't understand because there's no grammar in it. Just put a row of words together and see whether you'll be able to understand. You won't. The words will have to be correct, appropriate, right? They will have to have the correct grammatical connection. And it will have to be said with the correct pronunciation. Then only you'll be able to understand what's being said. Using bottom-up processing, how can you understand this utterance? The guy I sat next to on the bus this morning on the way to work was telling me he runs a Thai restaurant in Chinatown. Apparently, it's very popular at the moment. What do you understand? What did you identify first? I was traveling by bus.
He was traveling to work in the morning by bus.
Okay, right.
There was a man seated next to him, and he was telling
Okay.
that he owns,
He was talking to me, wasn't he?
yeah, and he
Yeah.
owns a restaurant in Chinatown.
Mhm.
The apparently that part, I don't know whether it's the speaker who thinks or the man says.
Apparently, yeah, it's very popular at the moment. A man would have said, we don't know, right? And he runs not just a restaurant, but what is the restaurant? A Thai
restaurant.
restaurant. A Thai restaurant. Okay. Now see, we understood it bit by bit, didn't we? It took us a couple of minutes to process it. Now see, using bottom-up processing, how can you understand this utterance? Mentally break it down into its component, referred as chunking. Did we do that? Yes. The chunk helps us identify the underlying proportions of the utterances. Okay. It is these units of meaning that we remember, and not the form in which we initially heard them. Our knowledge of grammar helps us find the appropriate chunks, and the speaker also assists us in this process through intonation and posing. Now, this might differ. The understanding that we get in this sentence might differ from the way that we are going to hear it. Now, if somebody says the guy, sorry, I will say, you can go in. The guy I sat next to on the bus this morning on the way to work was telling me he runs a Thai restaurant in Chinatown. Apparently, it's very popular at the moment. And this is one way of telling, because we were chunking it when we were telling, right? The guy I sat next to on the bus this morning on the way to work was telling me he runs a Thai restaurant in Chinatown. Apparently, it's very popular at the moment. I don't know how much you remember it if you don't see this, right? The guy I sat next to on the bus this morning on the way to work was telling me he runs a Thai restaurant in Chinatown. Apparently, it's very popular at the moment. You can say this in very, very different ways, very different intonations, accents. And the intonation, the accent, the stress would give a different meaning as well. Okay, so here, this is what is very important. Mentally, we are breaking down it into chunks, pieces, and then only we are trying to understand. I mean, this is what the children also will have to do. This is what we also will have to teach them how to do. Not simply like, read everything and then look at us with all empty eyes and say that they did not understand anything, or that they don't remember anything because they were just blank, because their minds were out, they were running everywhere. No, we simply will have to make them train when they listen to something, okay, even when they read to something, if it's long and even if it's not long, to get the meanings by chunks and then to put them together with your own experience. And then it's going to work out. Otherwise, it will be a bit of a hard work to understand lengthy utterances, right? So learners need a large vocabulary and good working knowledge of the sentence structure to process text bottom up. Many traditional classroom listening activities focus primarily on bottom-up processing exercises. Like what? What are the activities? Dictation, close listening, the use of multiple choice, questions after a test, and similar activities that require close and detailed recognition and processing of the input. They assume that everything the listener needs to understand is contained in the input. Now see, these are some of the things or some of the exercises we already do. But when we do them, we can always make them a little bit more interesting, or we can even, make them, say, bit more attractive, or we can prepare them according to the today's needs, the current needs, and then when you put forward, children will be doing it with a better understanding, right? But whatever it is, to use this bottom-up processing, right? Not the top-down, but the bottom-up processing, learners will have to have a good vocabulary. And then also, at least a fair knowledge on sentence structures. Then only they'll be able to understand chunk by chunk what they do, right? By teaching the students the bottom-up processing, they also will be able to, now these are the things they'll be able to achieve, or they'll be able to reach. Retain input while it is being processed. They'll be able to retain it. Now, this is one word that is very lacking in our children. They don't retain anything that we say. They pretend that they comprehend, but the problem is whether the comprehension retains, right? I'll share the PPTs, don't worry, okay? You will get everything. You will get a more detailed one than this. I'll do it at the end of the day so that we can go through it together as well. I always share you the PPT, so I mean it's easy for you. Don't try to take the screenshots and all that. It will be too difficult for you. So retain input while it's being processed. While something is being processed, it should retain as well. Otherwise, the results are going to be not very positive. Recognize word and clause divisions. And there is a difference between word and clause. And you should be able to recognize that. And also recognize keywords, as we did. Now, we did that when we were going through the tiny 2 sentences that was given. Recognize key transitions in a discourse. You have to see. You definitely will have to identify the key features, right? Recognize grammatical relationships between key elements in sentences. That will have to be down to say whether it was said, whether it is being said, whether it's saying now or he just said it. These are all grammatical relationships because that helps us decide when, where, how this has happened, right? Use stress and intonation to identify word and sentence functions. Yeah, this is very important. Stress and intonation plays a major role. Now we used to kind of, use this stress and intonation when it comes to questioning. I've seen without making a proper question, what we do is we raise our voice at the end of a sentence to indicate that we are asking a question. I say you want to ask, are you going to the class today? Instead of instead of we are going to the class today, that shows it's a question. Now we raise the voice at the end. Hmm? Now, these are things that we use when we speak. And this is, it's very natural, but it's not very correct, right? Not only that, now in the classroom, examples of kinds of tasks that develop bottom-up listening skills require listeners to do the following kinds of things. These are the things the listeners will have to do, okay? Identify the reference of pronouns in utterances. Recognize the time reference of an utterance, okay? Distinguish between positive and negative statements, as I was telling you. Recognize the order in which words occurred in an utterance. That again helps us. Whether I'm saying it to you, whether somebody else has said it, whether it's going to be someone else's one, someone else's is saying, okay? So whether it comes as first person, second person, third person, so in word order tells us. Identify sequence markers, whether it's going to be a process, whether we are talking about something that has happened in a sequential manner, right? Then identify keywords that occurred in a spoken text. Keywords are very important because if you don't identify the keywords, what happens is we kind of, get misled by what is happening. And then we might not be able to follow what's being said. So keywords are equally important. Identify which modal verbs occurred in a spoken text. So these are some of the things the learners will have to keep track of while, while we are teaching them bottom-up processing. We have to make sure that learners keep a track of these things as well, okay, whether they are capable of doing this or whether we are giving them the opportunity to do this, right? So bottom up in that sense is from specific to general, right? We start with a specific thing, small thing, a chunk, a piece, and then we try to weave things together and make it big, one unique whole thing, okay? Right, let's move on to the next time. It's called top-down processing. All right, read this on your own first. Take a few minutes to read this and see whether there's anybody who would like to tell me what it is.
If we are going to talk about a zoo, the student has to know what is a zoo and what is in a zoo. So that is the background knowledge, schemata. So if not, we should, introduce them and then talk. Otherwise, they
Right.
won't be able to make connections and, think what we are talking about. They will just listen like we listen to a Hindi movie or something.
Mhm.
Then nothing would process in their head. They won't comprehend it. They won't decode it.
Mhm. So you give the general idea first, right?
Yes.
Mm.
And
So
we
in
should
top
talk
down.
about something which is relevant to, I mean, if we are talking about the classroom, they are aware
Mhm.
because they are in the classroom and they know the things. If we are talking about
Mhm.
something different, we should make sure that
Mhm.
they know about it. They should have an idea to comprehend it. If not,
Right.
we should introduce.
So we are going to start from a whole big idea and bringing down to language. Okay. Now it says top-down processing refers to the use of background knowledge in understanding the meaning of a message. So if you say we are going to go to a place where there's a lot of animals living, and you call it the zoo, right? Now this is a big idea, big one. And you say animals, you don't know who. It's a broad subject, right? And they are being treated by the humans, or tamed or whatever it is. Right. So this gives the children the background knowledge to think about, okay, what could this place be? Right. Zoo. Zoo is a place where we keep these, not only animals. In zoos, we have birds as well. Right. Can there be fish? Right. All right. Now they're putting all their background knowledge together. So this background knowledge helps them to develop their language, and then they come down. And once when they come down only, they keep thinking about the language meaning separate. Is that clear? You give a big picture on first. That can be used for background knowledge. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
This can be situational or contextual knowledge. Okay. Knowledge in form of schemata or scripts. So you plan a whole overall structure, and then only you are going to talk about the relationships between them. We show them, like now, say a picture description. You describe, you see, you ask them to say what they see on the whole. Then you bring it down, bits and pieces, one by one down. Now using top-down processing, how you might respond. I heard on the news there was a big earthquake in China last night. Okay. See, it was a big earthquake in China last night. We don't know any tiny details are not mentioned, but this is big. I'm going to the dentist this afternoon. That's a big thing. No tiny details there. Don't know what we are going to do. Now, good luck even could be a big one because you don't know what the depth of it. Okay. Now, if the listener is unable to make use of top-down processing, an utterance or discourse may be incomprehensible. Bottom-up processing alone often provides an insufficient basis for comprehension. Now, see, you're going to go for a narration later, but see, now what it says is, if the listener is unable to make use of top-down processing, an utterance or discourse may be incomprehensible. If you don't know to look at the big picture and then come down, chunking it into pieces, then there is a problem with our comprehension. Because bottom-up processing only is not going to be sufficient for comprehension, because, putting pieces together to comprehend always is not going to be enough. It has to be a general thing brought down into pieces. Let's see what this is. Read this one in italics.
It is difficult to read those letters, ma'am. It's like
Why it's too small? Shall I make it big for you?
something is disturbing.
Can you now?
I think the style of the letter is disturbing.
Hmm. Do you want me to read it for you? Sally first tried setting loose a team of goofers. The plan backfired when a dog chased them away. She then entertained a group of teenagers and was delighted when they brought their motorcycles. Unfortunately, she failed to find the peeping Tom listed in the yellow pages. Furthermore, her stereo system was not loud enough. The crabgrass might have worked, but she didn't have a fan that was sufficiently powerful. The obscene phone calls gave her hope until the number was changed. She thought about calling a door-to-door salesman, but decided to hang up a clothesline instead. It was the installation of blinking neon lights across the street that did the trick. She eventually framed the ad from the classified section. What do you think is happening here? Hmm?
Frame the ad from the classified section. Is it
Read it again, will you? Get a screenshot and then enlarge it and read.
she has that the attempt is to either to bring traction or disturbance?
Hmm?
Like Sally's intention is either to get attention or to distract someone, because she tries many tricks and
Mhm.
finally
No, what you say is not clear to me.
the character Sally has either tried to get attention through a number of activities, tricks, or to
Mhm.
disturb someone through those activities. Because
Or
there's
two, the last part is not clear again. You know, your line is not very clear to me. I think you have a point there, but I can't get you correct.
actually I cannot make it more simple. How can I mean? Either she is trying to get the attention by carrying out these activities. Because,
She's trying to get the attention. Attention
yeah,
of who?
for something, maybe towards something. Maybe he has a house to be sold or something, or maybe she wants to disturb the people in that house.
She wants to disturb.
Yeah, maybe to annoy them or
Mhm. Annoy somebody.
And then finally, the trick which has worked is a neon light across the street. And the last
Mhm.
sentence, she eventually framed the ad from the classified section. Usually, a classified section, you run out ads either to sell or rent out things.
Mhm.
එතකොට framed it. ඒ කියන්නේ
ඒ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද?
framed it, maybe that has been ඒ කියන්නේ she doesn't want somebody to take that whatever the property they are selling or renting.
Mhm. Yeah. Anyway, the narration is not very clear, isn't it?
Yes, not enough of details.
Mhm.
So we can't relate to anything that we know. We just try to understand the meanings of the words.
Just read this part. Read this part and see whether it has something to do with the story. Because the story doesn't anyway straight away says anything. It doesn't say anything, right?
Is from the owner, the neighbor.
Hmm.
She's trying to annoy them through various things. And finally, something that she didn't do only has worked out, I guess.
Right. So now see, it's discourse, isn't it? Can you see how we should identify it? First, we need to get the what method are we going to use here now to understand this? What method?
Without a proper background, we just took the meaning of the words and tried to comprehend, but was not much successful. But with that neighbor trying to annoy, it made more sense.
Yeah. So now it says like this bottom-up processing will not be sufficient for comprehension, right? Because we don't know the background, we don't know what it is about unless somebody tells us the topic. If that topic was given, okay, we then understand that she was doing a series of things in order to annoy a neighbor, troublesome neighbor. Otherwise, we don't know what she was doing, right? I mean, when I first read it, I thought it was like she was trying to chase somebody away. She was being difficult. You understand? So now see, when you teach top-down processing, exercises that require top-down processing to develop the learners. Well, this is too big for you to read now. Learners' ability to do the following. Now they use keywords to construct the schema of a discourse. Infer the setting for a text. Infer the role of the participants and their goals. Infer causes or effects. Infer unstated details of a situation. Then anticipate questions related to the topic or situation. Now, if the whole idea was given first, at least with one sentence, then we would have been able to understand. Okay. Here we won't be able to understand anything because we don't know the topmost part of it. All right. So for comprehension, we can see top-down approach plays a major role. Okay. Only bottom-up approach itself won't be able to help us in understanding or comprehending, right? So when we use this top-down processing, we can use the following activities to develop top-down listening skills. Students generate a set of questions they expect to hear about a topic and listen to see if they are answered. Or students generate a list of things they already know about a topic and then things they would like to learn more about. Then listen and compare. Students read one speaker's part in a conversation, predict the other speaker's part, and then listen and compare. Like, you are filling the gaps. You just listen to one and then you think, you assume, go for assumptions. The other speaker might have said this, like gossiping, right? So these things we can use when it comes to the top-down processing to be used in the classroom to make the students, engage in understanding the work that we do, that is for listening comprehension, right? Then again, we can also use these things. Students read a list of key points to be covered in a talk. Then listen to see which ones are mentioned. Now we just do this like, you ask the students to write the headlines of the news reading of that day. Students listen to part of a story, complete the story ending. Then listen and compare things. Compare ending. You give part of it and then they do the other part. And then, you do it in groups and then you listen to all the endings. Okay. Big part is given. How are they going to break it down to smaller parts and end it? Or students read news headlines, guess what happened, then listen to the full news items and compare. We just make our students do these things, right? So teaching top-down processing is, I feel, in my point of view, where I feel is better and easy for teachers. Okay. Now, how are we going to combine bottom-up and top-down listening in a listening lesson? How can we do that? In real-world listening, both bottom-up and top-down processing generally occur together. We don't have them separately, like, the two hands you don't have, because two hands don't do work differently. You have to have both the hands together to work. The domination of one of them depends on the listener's familiarity with the topic and content of the text. Okay. If you have a better background knowledge, yes, you will use top-down first. The density of information in a text, how much you have it. The text type and the listener's response in listening. Okay. These things will decide which one is going to be first. Now, if the student is not familiar with the topic and the content of the text a lot, then he might go with bottom up. We will put bits and pieces together and then try to create the big picture. If a person has a better understanding of the topic, then he will have the big picture first and then come into small detail. Okay. So it all depends on the topic and the content familiarity, the density of information, the text type, and the listener's purpose in listening. Now say, can you see all the three parts here? A typical listening lesson. This is normally what you call a typical listening lesson would be: pre-listening, while listening, and the post-listening. Okay. Prepare students for both top-down and bottom-up processing through activities involving activating prior knowledge, making predictions, and reviewing key vocabulary. While listening, we focuses on comprehension through exercises that require selective listening, just listening or sequencing. And the post-listening would be, this typically involves response to comprehension and may require students to give opinions about a topic. However, it can also include a bottom-up focus if the teacher and the listeners examine the text or parts of the text in detail, focusing on sections that students could not follow. All right. Do you use this system in the classes, or do you use different systems when you do listening? What do you do as teachers in the schools? Do you do listening lessons?
Yes, ma'am, we follow this free violent.
Hmm?
Yes, ma'am, I follow free violent pose. This method.
Right. Okay. So you go with pre, while, and post listening.
And ma'am,
Mhm.
most of the time we select some text regarding that they know something. It means something they have a background knowledge.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
And
they won't be able to understand.
Mhm. And how do you do it after that?
Like pre, while, and post system.
Mhm. Right. So when you have this pre, while, and post system, this can always be integrated with metacognitive strategies. Okay. Which is called planning, monitoring, and evaluation. There are three. Right. We'll be doing a lesson plan. I'll tell you how to do it. Give me some time. So in the conclusion, we can say the assumption of teaching of listening as comprehension that the role of listening in a language program is to help develop learners' ability to understand things they have listened to. This approach to teaching of listening is based on the following assumptions. What are the assumptions? Listening serves the goal of extracting meaning from messages. To do this, learners have to be taught how to use both bottom-up and top-down process to understand message. The language of utterance, the precise words, syntax, and expressions used by speakers are temporary carriers of meaning. Once meaning is identified, there is no further need to attend to the form of message unless problems in understanding occurred. Teaching listening strategies can make learners more effective listeners. So tasks employed, now these are the conclusions that you can make, right? So the tasks employed in the classroom material enables listeners to recognize and act on the general, specific, or implied meaning of utterances. And now here we play a major role. What materials do we use? These tasks should include actually sequencing, true, false, comprehension, picture identification, summarizing, and dicta comp or something like that, as well as activities designed to develop effective listening strategies. You have to make the students interested in listening. Otherwise, I think it's one of the skills students don't like at all. Just like I told you one day, use things like musical dictation. They will love it. Normally these children, they like to listen to songs. So, get the songs printed with deleted words in between and give them. They will listen. Similarly, you can, play a story and have the text ready for them with deleted phrases and words. And then, ask them to fill in between while listening. These things will make them interested in listening more than, just more than just giving them straight away that we're going to do a listening lesson today and this is what it's going to be, and it has 3 stages and I'm going to read it for 3 times and okay, no, let's do a game. Come, let's sit down. All right. Even this secret passing is a listening activity that we can do, because at the end of the line, what the first one has said is totally weird and said in a different form. Okay. Therefore, make them interested in listening by doing something interesting. And then they will also feel that, yes, we should do it, right? Can you see this chart? This is how you can actually conclude. You have the real world experience, you have content, subject matter, then you have the background knowledge, formal schema or the scripts, then you have top-down process, then language heard, understanding of spoken language, bottom-up, and everything that we have said is here in this particular chart. And if you keep this with you, you really don't have to do any work. Now, these are 2 questions that I want you to do. Compare in details bottom-up and top-down processing. Differentiate between 2 functions of listening as comprehension and listening as acquisition. I told you this is going to come at the end. Okay. This is going to be your work that we are not homework. We are going to do it now. Right. Note I'll give you in the next one. There's another slide, a PPT that I want you to, I want to share you with. Can you take a screenshot of this and put it in the group? All these 3 group leaders, if you're here, put it in your relevant groups, respective groups, or one of you take it and put it in the listening and speaking group so that you all can share it to your respective groups later. Purnima is there, is she? Are the group leaders here in the class today? Rushda, are you there? Purnima? Mahisha is there,
Yes,
right?
ma'am, I'll share.
Right, okay. You share it in the group, please.
Yeah.
Isn't Rushda here in the class today? You share it in the main group so that everybody can share, right? Later.
Miss, I'm there, but my phone is something.
Okay. So Fatima, take this screenshot and send it to Purnima, right?
My
And put it in your, put it in
phone,
your group.
that's why.
Yeah, batch 10. Batch 10, 11, 12, please share it among yourselves. Madhushi, can you share it to the main group?
I am also in the main group, ma'am, because the Purnimak has added me also that day, so I can share.
All right, okay. Then please share it.
Okay.
Well, now, did you take the screenshot now? I have some more to give you, some more to discuss. Not a lot, little bit more. Have you taken the screenshot?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes.
Did you put it in the main group? Right. I would give you a small break now, and then we'll move on to the other part. Okay? Take a small break. 10 minutes, will 10 minutes be okay? 2:39, 2:40, 2:50, 2:55, yeah, 15 minutes. Take your break and come back. Okay, right. Now I'm going to give you a presentation of what we have done. Not this one, but something similar to this. And that's a task that I'm going to give you. Okay. I'll be sharing this in your groups. I hope the group members are there to share it in the class groups, right? Let me do it first. Wait until I share this. I'm going to share it in the main group. I've already shared it into the main group. Let's see whether you have got it. Can you please share it with your group, the members,
Yes, ma'am. I have shared now.
the big one,
For
day 4
batch
listening and
11.
repeating? Batch 11, batch 10. How can we share it to batch 10?
Done, ma'am. I'm done.
Who did it? 12? Has somebody shared it to batch 12 as well? Now it has about, I think, 60 odd slides, right? Batch 10, have you all got it? Have you got in your,
Ma'am, I shared with batch 10.
right. Okay, thank you. Batch 11. How can we send it to batch 11, dear? Batch 12, did you get it? Can you
Yes,
please?
madam. Batch 12 we got.
You got, right. Batch 11, Maisha, is there any way that we can share it? Anybody that you know from batch 11? To whom you can share? And then she can share it in the group. Rusha, which group are you from? Batch 11. You're from batch 11. The batch 11 is the problem I have. Rushda? Are you there in the group, Rushda?
I have a number, ma'am, called Rehana. Don't know whether she's there.
But
She's
then
from.
Rushda can go in. No, Rushda is in the main group. She should get this one. Rushda, can you please share it to batch 11?
Ma'am, someone has put she's leaving. Don't know where. Is Rushda or
Leaving. Where is she leaving?
in the main group, I saw a message.
That was a Purnima, right? Not Rushda.
No, ma'am.
Huh?
Yeah. It's not.
Who is shouting now? Hmm? Who is shouting like a class? Right, okay. Whatever it is, Manisha, if there's a possibility, can you share it with batch 11? Please.
Rehan from batch 11, are you there? I have your number. I can share with you if you are there.
Rehana should be
Oh,
there,
okay.
yes. She's
Yeah,
right.
I'm
Rana, get the one and share it to your group, please. Okay, because I have something to give you now. I want you to do something.
done, ma'am.
Got it? Did you send?
Yeah, I sent.
Okay, right. Now, this is my instruction for you. You are going to work for about half an hour to 45 minutes on this. Now, you have got 4 PPTs. Day 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, I'm going to put you into 4 groups. When I say I'm going to put you into groups, please don't leave the Zoom, because learn to work in groups. If what happens if your students, when you ask them to do a group work, if they leave the class, would you like that? I don't mind you leaving, that's your choice, but I don't think you will learn properly if you're trying to leave. So make sure that you are there in the class and then do it, okay? Every group will get to work on one presentation that I have sent. Okay, do you understand? I'm going to put it here in the chat box. I will number. Now say there'll be 4 rooms. Room 1 will get day 1 presentation. Room 2 will have to work on day 2 presentation. Room 3 will have to work on day 3 presentation. And room 4 will have to work on day 4 presentation. I don't know who will be there. It will be a mix, because it will not be like, batch 10 is in one room and no, it will be a mix. It's nice to mix and work. Okay. What you have to do here is number 1 thing. Number 1. You have to go through the entire set of slides I have given you. And you must make 20 MCQs. You know what MCQs are? Multiple choice questions out of the slides I have given you. Okay. This is for each day. Yeah? Every day 1, 20, day 2, 20, day 3, 20, day 4, 20. So there'll be 20 that you'll be making. And you have to include the answers in a separate paper. All right. Put the answers separately. Okay. Number 2, this is number 1, right? Number 2, task number 2 is prepare for short answer questions.
Ma'am, the second instruction was not clear. Could you please repeat?
Wait. Prepare for short answer questions. Short answer in the sense structured questions.
Madam, excuse me.
Yeah.
First one, MCQs 20 questions.
Yeah, it's in the chat box. I have put it there.
Okay, madam.
Prepare
Okay.
for structured questions. Answers for each question will have to be given in point form, right? Now, I mean, say you ask what is listening acquisition, you just give the answers in point form. You don't give paragraphs there. Okay, that's number 2. Prepare for structured questions. Structured type, right? Number 3, you have only 3 tasks to do. It's not difficult. This is easy when you put your heads together because you're going to have at least 10 in one group. You are going to prepare for essay type questions. Okay. Again, answers will have to be given in point form. For each question, answers will have to be given in point form. Okay. Okay. Are the instructions clear? Do you understand what I say?
There are only 3 questions. And then
Three types. Yeah. 20 MCQs, 4 structured questions, and 4 essay type questions from each group, right? Each group will represent each day. Right, I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms and we are going to start working now, okay? Now, before I put you there, please ask me if you have any questions, quickly.
Madam,
right.
we have to finish the
Yeah.
task within the time now before 4.
Yeah, this is more than enough, yes, because we have about 9.
Right.
If you get yourself divided and then finally discuss, that's more than enough, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, do we have to type them or write
Type
within
them,
a
type them, quickly type them.
Madam, do
Okay.
we have to write the answers also?
Yes, answers in the sense, give the answers in point form. Now, not the full answer. What
That
you
means
expect.
essay type questions. What about essay type questions, madam?
Essay type questions, you have to give only the points that you are expecting your student to write. So
Okay.
suppose you are going to give them to your students. And what are you expecting them to write? Okay. You will understand why I am doing this once when you have completed it. Okay. Let's go into the breakout rooms now. Don't be lazy, we'll work. Right, accept your rooms. Rehana, please accept. Rehana.
Excuse.
Rehana, yeah. Would you please accept Rehana? Yes, who's talking? 98, 98, who's 98, 98? Right. Aisha, who's Aisha? Start working. Hiroshana, what happened to you? Accept the breakout room. Hiroshana. Yes, Samali. Could you please accept the breakout room? If not, you will not be able to work. Your time will be wasted. Please accept the breakout room. Sandhini, which group were you in? What happened to you? Sandhini?
Ma'am, I
What-
was in group 4.
Group
And,
4, right? Why did you
Yeah,
leave?
you asked to share the screens. I joined from my mobile phone and I wanted to connect it to the laptop.
All right, okay. I'll put you in the group again. Right. Accept now. Okay, Sandhini? Got it? Right. Rushda, were you in any group? Rushda? Please accept your rooms.